in an effort to look tougher than he actually is, Putin is doing, well, this. He's kind of like a cat puffing himself up. Like he's still a cat's still a cat, but a cat can make itself look bigger by puffing its tail and its fur and that kind of thing to look threatening and menacing. And I think that's what's going on here. I think that's what's at play. So let's look at this. The Kremlin's nuclear threats and rhetorical efforts to delay peace negotiations are part of a broader cognitive campaign to undermine U.S.-led efforts to end Russia's war in Ukraine. This by the ISW. I think that's spot on. That's good analysis. This is from Euromaidan Press. Despite U.S. President Trump's deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire, Russian President Putin dismissed it outright. Again, he's puffing his tail, trying to look tough. He stated Russia is ready for peace talks only on its own terms and prepared to wait until Kyiv fully accepts Moscow's demands. China's doing the same thing with the secondary sanctions. We'll see how long that lasts. India folded like a chair very quickly. Like, you know what? Let's stop doing this. Okay. Now, Putin, for succor, ran to his good friend Lukashenko, and they're sitting there talking about all this. It was clear that the European Union, this is one of the things that he said, it's clear that the European Union and Europe as a whole didn't have much sovereignty. Now it has become obvious that it has none at all, and in the current critical situation, that a lack of sovereignty is immediately followed by economic losses. The loss of political sovereignty is now leading to the loss of economic sovereignty and to enormous damage. I don't know what he's talking about here. I guess he's trying to say that Europe is a puppet of the United States, but Europe wants Ukraine to be resolved more than the United States does. So it would kind of be backwards, I think. He said if Kyiv is not ready for negotiations, Moscow will wait. Well, he means negotiations on his terms that he laid out back in 2024 or previous to that. Well, actually in 2022, early on in the war. Okay. I saw this and I thought, okay, Russia is not seizing territories during the special military operation, but returning them, says Putin. They will, Lukashenko says, they will bite off, seize, and move on. And Putin corrects him and says, no, returns. We're going to return the territories. Yeah, or return the territories. Ukraine today must run to ask Russia to negotiate, Lukashenko noted. He added that he agreed with Putin to involve Belarus in the negotiation process if necessary. Yeah, this is where Russia is correcting, or sorry, where Putin is correcting Lukashenko and saying, return. We're going to return our territories. It's ours after, there it is, right there. Yeah. It's ours after all. It was Russia's, and then Ukraine kind of had it because of some kind of weird border that was created somewhere along the way, but it's really ours, is what he's saying. Okay, these conditions are, well, the conditions for settlement in Ukraine outlined in June 2024 remain in force. These conditions are Ukrainian troops leave Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions, and Ukraine promises not to join NATO, and Ukraine remains a neutral state. Well, then Russia gets everything exactly, and that's what Putin wants. Putin also said that no death of a Russian soldier has ever been unnecessary, but he pronounced it wrong. It's actually no death of a Russian soldier has been necessary. This was a unforced error. This never had to happen. No war had to happen here. Okay. Sputnik carries this. No one will be able to kneel Minsk and Moscow, says Lukashenko. We are determined to defend our interests. Nothing says you're doing well like running to Lukashenko or running to Kim Jong-un to back your play, right? I mean, it's a bizarre look. Okay, Putin threatens with the Orishnik. Well, again, this is what you do. You're threatening his nuclear or almost nuclear missiles. Orishnik, and claims he'll deploy the new weapon in Belarus. Putin announced that the first serially produced Orishnik system has been completed and will be deployed in Belarus by the end of the year. According to him, a location has already been chosen and preparations are underway. So this is part of that same dialogue that they were having. So now what's the next thing that you would want to do after you're saber rattling and threatening to nuke the West and that sort of thing? Well, run to church. So Sputnik is showing Putin and Lukashenko attending a prayer service at the Church of Smolensk Icon, the Mother of God. I highly doubt that that either of these men are devout in any meaningful way, but they'll use that veneer as it serves them. Okay, Darth Putin said he's replying to the Swiss embassy in Kyiv. In the spirit of the Swiss National Day, on which Switzerland celebrates freedom, peace, democracy, and solidarity, we reach out to our fellow citizens in Ukraine. And Darth Putin's reply was, "You celebrate freedom and peace and democracy despite being completely surrounded by an aggressive alliance like NATO? Amazing." All right. And while this is going on, the saber rattling verbally, they're saber rattling physically. China and Russia have kicked off joint naval exercises near the coast of the Russian port city of Vladivostok as the two countries continue to deepen their ties through military cooperation. So that's what's going on in Russia. Russia will not make any further concessions, according to the political commentator Ivan Prebogansky. They will not make any further concessions. Further concessions? When did they make concessions to begin with? The Kremlin realized that Trump has figured out he's being led on. Well, that second part's certainly true. The first part, further concessions, you got to kick out the word further, and then the sentence makes sense. Okay, meanwhile, what's going on with Trump and the United States and that sort of thing? The U.S. President Donald Trump again displayed anger with Russia following its latest deadly attack on Kyiv, a strike that killed 31 people, including 5 children, calling the action disgusting, vowing to slap new sanctions on Moscow. Again, we're 7 days away from the new sanctions. We'll see it when we see it. No progress. The White House's patience with Putin is exhausted after failed talks, according to Rubio. Not making any progress. They're trying. You've got to at least give the White House this. As slow as you say that they have been, and truly they have been far slower than any of us want, they have given them every opportunity to come to the table. So now they can say, in hindsight, look, we gave you every opportunity. Now they're going down a different path with sanctions or weapons or what have you. Okay. Next, Trump says Witkoff will travel to Russia, affirms plans for a new sanctions. Okay, so those new sanctions are underway, it looks like, and Witkoff is going to be delivering the bad news. So we'll see how that negotiation plays out. Trump claims that he's seen internal data showing catastrophic Russian losses in 2024, with over 122,000 troops killed compared to 8,000 Ukrainian soldiers. Now, this is Trump's Truth Social post saying that. I don't know that those numbers are accurate, but isn't that an amazing reversal for Trump to be talking like that? I mean, isn't that just something pretty significant for Trump to be articulating that when just 3 weeks ago he was saying almost the opposite kind of stuff about, like, Putin, we can get along and we can cut a deal and that sort of thing. And his rhetoric changed. He says he's about to apply sanctions. And if you're waiting to see it to believe it, I understand, but it seems like something has changed. Okay, meanwhile, this is interesting. U.S. senators launched a $54.6 billion Ukraine aid bill, defying Trump's fiscal cuts. Now, I don't know if anything will come of that. And when you look into it, not a lot of that is going directly to Ukraine. Bipartisan bill led by Senators Shaheen and Murkowski. Murkowski is a Republican from Alaska. I think Shaheen is, I want to say Connecticut, but I can't remember, Democrat, has been introduced by the U.S. Senate, aiming to provide over $50 billion in new aid for Ukraine. The legislation includes $30 billion in military support through 2027, expanded authority to transfer Pentagon stockpiles, $3 billion in foreign military financing, funds for law enforcement, war crimes prosecutions, and trilateral drone initiative with Ukraine and Taiwan. This part is actually really useful. It's kind of like the Israel-Ukraine bill. If you do it with Taiwan and Ukraine, you have a better shot of getting things across. The bill also proposes using interest from frozen Russian assets, seized illicit weapons to support Ukraine. Despite strong backing, its passage faces hurdles and a divided Congress. I don't know what'll come of it. It's less money than during the Biden administration, but it's not nothing, and it's a good step forward. Okay. General Jack Keane says that Trump has shifted from months of diplomacy to confrontation. Putin ignored Ukraine's 30-day ceasefire and escalated the war, and now the U.S. and Europe are adding military power to support Ukraine. Let's hear him just briefly.
Policy from a completely diplomatic approach that lasted for weeks and months and really didn't get us anywhere because Putin was not going to cooperate, As we know the Ukrainians did, they immediately went to an unconditional 30-day ceasefire, put that on the table, and Putin has stiffed that all of this time and, as a matter of fact, escalated the war, principally against the people of Ukraine. There's over 13,000 dead civilians in Ukraine, and people don't focus on that at all. I mean, it is a reality that's out there. The president understands that.
Okay, so I think Trump has actually shifted. I think there is some zagging. I know many of you didn't believe me. Gerdes, he's just seeing what he wants to see. But I'm showing you line and line and line after line of evidence that Trump is actually shifting. How far he'll shift or if he'll stay on this course, I can't tell you. Okay, President Trump has told the UN Security Council that he hopes and expects a deal to end Russia's war in Ukraine by August 8th, with the U.S. ready to take further measures if there is no progress. I don't think anything will happen on the 8th, and I think further measures will have to follow inevitably. Cambodia plans to nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize for resolving the conflict with Thailand. Earlier, Pakistan nominated the U.S. president for the Nobel Peace Prize, resolving hostilities with India. I'd like to see him get one for stopping what's going on in Ukraine. Focus on Ukraine already. Like, that's what you need to be spending your time on. But again, these other conflicts were far easier, far less entrenched than what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, and Putin just has no appetite to stop. So, okay. Now, we talked about this. This was a really good day in Ukraine with the anti-corruption groups being restored to independence, and Zelensky was getting support from Antonio Costa and Ursula von der Leyen and Kaja Kallas and a whole host of others for that. That's the right thing. Ukraine's democracy is strong. Then we saw this, and we're wrapping up here. Russia is exporting its energy to Asian countries, and they will continue to import Russian oil. Well, so says economist Jeffrey Sachs. I don't know that that's going to be the case. We do know what just happened. India's state refineries drop Russian oil as discounts vanish just before Trump imposes his 25% tariffs and warns of penalties of over 100%. And that seems to have pushed them off the ledge. I talked about this yesterday, how a threatened tariff is already killing Russian oil deals. So I think more is to follow. I think Brazil won't go down that path. I'm not sure about China, but I think Brazil will go down the path with India and just like, you know what? I like that Russian oil while I had it, but it's not worth 100%. I'm not sure what China will do. So if you have an idea, put that in the comments below. Last little bit by Darth Putin. On this day in 1975, the USSR signed the Helsinki Accords, promising to respect borders and let countries join what organizations they want. As we, the self-declared successor state, have always followed this, you can trust us over a peace deal with Ukraine now. Yeah. That's where we are, my friends. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.